most of the data that I've seen is anywhere between 7 and 10, maybe up to 12 different touches, and that after 12 you start to see a diminishing return on those. What are those touches? And like we can tend to like just spray and pray to a degree of like, I need to get them in front of them, I need to try and grab their attention. But if we're not adding anything that they don't already know or some kind of insight or value in those touches, then we're training them to ignore us, essentially. Doing a little bit of prep work that we can then apply to a group of those that have a similar either issues that have been identified or possible problems that have been identified or industry or role or trigger events, something that they might all have in common that we can group some together. Yeah, like the same thing you're experiencing, they're experiencing. Made even more difficult by the fact that they have multiple tools in different places, which not only takes a bunch of time, but that time is being spent in trying to figure things out when that time could be spent in doing communications and outreach to either current or potentially new customers. That's going to help their business to not just survive this coming recession, but possibly even thrive in it. If there is some type of a data point and insight internally there that you can use to be able to craft a message to them that points this out in a way that they hadn't fully considered or even realized. Time is being spent. If you had, like, if you were to say, if you have these 3 different applications, and what a lot of companies in your situation or people in your role don't realize is that for every application you add to your team, you're adding additional time in logging in and logging out, plus the options for the errors in miscommunications that happen, something like that. Or a case study of a customer who was using all of these different tools that weren't talking to each other. And if there's any way you could dig into how much time or resources it costs to be able to do that. I would even go outside and just do a Google search for how much time do different technology tools take the average person to run. But that's only one part of the factor, because the other thing is, why do they need to do something about it now? And why should they spend potentially more money, right, than they would if they just had all of these different tools in place? So they've brought on new hires. That's something that you can glean from LinkedIn Sales Navigator and so forth. Can you think about if they have, let's say they have 5 different tools and they've hired someone new, how much longer is that person going to take to ramp up to get productive when they have 5 different tools? What if you didn't need to hire that person if you had it all in one? At a very high level, what the takeaway is we have to be able to ask the questions in our messaging that they're thinking of. I just did a presentation last week for a big group. And in that, these are the 6 questions, or at least some of these questions that we need to address in our messaging when we're doing our outreach for buyers. So why change? So the why change, this is the first part of your outreach, that you want to be able to disrupt what they think about the status quo by offering what they didn't know or hadn't fully considered before. So that's what that data and insight is all about. Did you know this and how it relates to your business that you might not have fully considered before? Because right now they're like, I have an idea. As soon as we identify a problem in our minds, almost within milliseconds, we've decided what we need to do about it. And everything that we do is just trying to justify the decision we've already made in our minds. So for those that you're reaching out to, is we have to disrupt the status quo that we think that we figured it out by offering something that they hadn't known or fully considered before. That's why this why change question in your messaging is so important. And then the why now is the second thing to get them to take action on it. When you think about they're using multiple tools, for example, and the why should they change that, right? That's where that data and insight, that how much time it's taking them, how much less productive they are. If they're hiring someone new, how much more it's going to take them to ramp up. And why now? As in, why in this particular time of year we're facing a recession should you be making any changes? There's another thing you might want to look up, and I posted it on my LinkedIn profile months ago, but if you look up Harvard Business Review recession trends and patterns, there's an article that will likely come up that talks about what companies need to do in times of uncertainty and recession. And it's not spending money, but it's spending it in a smart way and making decisions for growth that you take a calculated risk for. if you take a look and read through that, that's something that is going to be really powerful in your messaging whenever you're reaching out to anyone during possible recession downtimes. That Harvard Business Review, I believe that they actually offer some, like this was from the last recession that they did some studies afterwards, and they found that people who took certain types of decisions and behaviors actually grew versus those that didn't actually shrunk and actually went out of business. So you might even be able to offer some insight into that as far as, when you're thinking about making these kinds of decisions, companies like yours that have made these kinds of decisions have seen this kind of growth. Think of when you look at the cadence that they're recommending for you, look at it from the lens of how does this disrupt the status quo for them in their thinking? How does it explain to them why they should make a change and why they should think about making a change now? How are they going to benefit from it?